Right, so there's always this mystery that's in the kind of history, the theological history of the church, between the sovereignty of God, how much He controls, and the freedom that we have as humans. Are we free to make choices? Does God's knowledge of future events mean that everything is necessarily I think it's different to say, I know what will happen tomorrow, than it is to say, I'm controlling what will happen tomorrow, and that's why I know it. So the more I know you as a person, the better I can actually, not being God, I could just, as a man, predict what you might do based on your nature tomorrow. It doesn't mean I'm controlling what you'll do, but I know, given a certain number of desserts, what my kids will pick. It doesn't mean I'm determining what they will pick. I just know everything about my kids, and therefore, you know, especially when they're younger, and so I can kind of I knew what they're going to do. Now, this is a kind of an imperfect analogy when it comes to God, because God is all-knowing. But let's put it this way. As an atheist, I believe that the only forces that had power over the universe were the impersonal forces of physics and chemistry acting on space, time, and matter. If that is true, if all we are physical beings that are entirely physical, and we're only influenced by physics, physics as an impersonal force cannot remove itself to allow you personal freedom. If you're just a physical being, then you don't even have thoughts, because those are immaterial. You only have a material brain. And everything in your material brain is determined by prior neurons firing in your material brain. That means that you aren't even in control of your own thoughts. You think you are, but those are actually physical events like dominoes that are falling because of prior physical events in your brain that you can't control. In that kind of a world, do you really have freedom? It's called determinism. And materialists who are atheists really have to kind of bite into some form of determinism. And a lot of the most significant atheists of our age are determinists. They get this. Someone like Sam Harris, for example, will say that you don't really have the freedom you think you do because your neurons are not under your control. And therefore, this is happening in your brain, and you don't have that kind of free agency. And I think Jerry Coyne also believes this. He's an evolutionist, who's an atheist. So these are guys who would say, no, it's all determined by physical events. Now, in our worldview, we don't believe that the entire universe is governed by impersonal forces of physics. We believe there's a personal being at work. Of the two that could allow you freedom, only one of these two could actually do it. Impersonal forces of physics cannot say, no, today I'm not going to act on her. But a personal being has choices to make. And although he could control every move, he might relinquish some of that for some purpose that's greater than we can imagine. Yeah. So of the two possible kinds of worlds, it seems to me that only the one that's governed by a personal divine being could really allow for any kind of free agency, the very free agency you think you have right now as you're listening to my words and trying to decide freely if they're true. If you have that kind of free agency, you really are only in one of two possible universes. The atheist universe is really about natural law and physics on matter, and you don't have that kind of freedom. But in a theistic worldview, God might allow you that kind of freedom. And the mystery between God's power and sovereignty and our human free agency has been debated for centuries. Could actually provide you with that kind of freedom, and it happens to be the theistic worldview where God exists. So I would say that yes, of those two options, I do believe that God allows us freedom because He wants genuine love in the world. And you cannot love unless you have the freedom to hate or love. When you choose freely to love somebody, that's genuine freedom. So a God who is love, and that's how our God's described, would have to create a universe in which you had that kind of scary freedom. The freedom to love, and then it would be true love. Or to say, you know, I don't want to live, I hate that. Now, what God has done is He's given you that kind of scary freedom and then a set of rules so you won't abuse your freedom. Yeah. But lots of us like the freedom part, but we don't like the rule part. And so we abuse the rules and we do things we shouldn't do. But that's not on God. God's just trying to make a world, a universe in which love is possible and actually does exist.
Yeah, that's very good.
Long answer for a short question.
No, it's really good because if you just, a lot of people like to know behind it because, you know, if you don't have a long answer sometimes, then they'll ask more and more and more. And if you can give the long answer that can answer all those other questions without having an answer, it's perfect.
I think this is one of the first things I struggle with as a new believer is how do I reconcile? Has God chosen every move I'm about to make? Is anything of my own? Is everything determined by a sovereign God who's in control, like a puppet master in control of every string? And I think that physics would have to be the puppet master that's in control of everything. But a personal being could make choices to not pull a string. to say, I'm not going to, and that's a mystery to us, really, where it is that line is drawn and why God does certain things. But only one, like I said, only one kind of universe could actually allow you that kind of freedom, and that's the one in which God is behind the wheel instead of physics.
Oh.